Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar, The Ins and Outs of Parking Citation Collections. Just a quick reminder before we get started, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A feature. Feel free to type them at any time during the presentation, and we will address them at the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters for today's webinar, Christy Boggs and Sadie Jones. Christy is our Director of Citation Services here at T2 Systems. She has over 20 years of experience in the customer service and collections industry. She's been with T2 for 8 years now, and she loves helping our customers collect more money. A fun fact about Christy is that she actually went to school to be an RN and decided that parking would be a lot more fun. And then we have Sadie. Sadie is our Senior Manager of Citation Services. She has over 25 years of customer service and collections experience. She has been at T2 for 14 years now. She loves helping people and our customers succeed. And a fun fact about Sadie is that she went to school for anthropology, but decided that she would rather work with people and help businesses reach their goals. And with that, I will let Christy take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone joining today. Before we get started into the actual steps of collections, I wanted to go over just a few tips and a couple of things that maybe you can start thinking about in your organization. So when we talk about citation collections, a few things the group really needs to start thinking about are, one, how many days you give the violator to pay. So as we go through this webinar and the presentation, kind of think about what your organization does today. So how long do you give your violators to pay the actual citation? And does your organization charge any type of late fee or escalation fee? And internally, what type of tools do you have in your toolbox that you can use to collect the outstanding citation? How are you currently receiving registered owner information, and do you have access to receive registered owner information? And how do you notice the violator? If the citation goes unpaid, what type of notice is sent? Do you have any hold programs, any student holds if you're a university, any DMV registration holds if you're a municipality or state-owned agency? And do you partner with a third-party collection agency to extend the collections on that unpaid debt? Do you have access to any type of tax offset program? So these are just a few questions and a few tips to be thinking about as we go through this webinar. So let's take a look at the parking citation life cycle. Typically, hold on for me just one second, sorry. Typically, this cycle is what an organization's parking citation looks like. So the enforcement officer issues the citation, and that's considered your first notice. Then the citation usually is placed in a glove box, or maybe the wind blows it away. In a perfect world, they would turn around and pay it. However, we all know that that happens. It does go unpaid. The citation could be linked to a student account, maybe by a parking permit or by the license plate. Or you may have access to some type of registration owner lookup. From that, there's usually an initial notice that gets sent to the person responsible, if it's on a student account, or maybe to the registered owner. And if not paid, then possibly the late fees are applied and some type of second notice is sent out. If it remains unpaid, then there are organizations, universities that can send to a bursar's office. Maybe there's some type of internal hold, or you may boot or tow and then possibly sent to a third-party collection agency. So I wanted to give this group just a visual of what the parking citation life cycle looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to dig into each one of these cycles. So the 4 steps towards collecting on outstanding citations. Step one in any collection process for the parking citation should always be obtaining that registered owner information. So when you think about what you have outstanding, you need to look and see if you have a registered owner attached. If not, it's important to get into a partnership maybe with your local DMV if you're allowed to have access to those records. We have some organizations, universities, that have student registration data from the students purchasing parking permits. You can link up the plate to that parking permit to be able to attach that responsible party. We also have a product in T2 systems called Rover, which that allows us to go out on your behalf to obtain registered owner information. There are outside vendors available for you to receive registered owner information, such as Worldwide, IDI Core, and Lexus. And then you may also have those habitual offenders where you've already found a registered owner and maybe you just need to clean up the data and attach the tickets. So a few things to think about with the registered owner information: how many citations do you have without registered owner information today? What's the dollar value of those unpaid citations, and how much could you bring back into your parking department? And what you're going to see later on in this presentation is you will see an actual report that shows you an organization that has quite a bit of unpaid citations without registered owner information, and how you can actually turn that into money coming back into your organization. Step two of the collection process is notification. Now, you can use the email notification, which is available in Flex. So if you're a university and you have that student's email address, you can send them notification of that citation through that function in Flex. You can also do a mailed notice, which is highly recommended. In many cases, you may have the person that actually received the citation isn't the same person that's the registered owner. So I put an example up here of just, what a parking mailed notice looks like for maybe like your first initial notice. You want to let them know what the next steps are. So how long they would have to pay the notice, if there are any additional late fees or any type of escalations, you want to make sure that that's included and be very clear about what the expectations are. Now, I know internally with our services, as an example, we like to use the different colors. So our red is typically our final notice, but you can also, if you wanted to use a green notice or red, whichever you prefer. But we have seen that using a color, it does help. Red tends to be like a warning or final. So step three, your citation value structure. You need to make sure that there are clear late fees explained. A lot of times that will motivate an individual to go ahead and take care of that citation before it escalates. So a couple things to look at to bring in some additional money into parking and through collections is take a look at your citation value. Is it comparable to other or similar organizations in your area? And this is really great because we do have the T2 community, so you have access to speak with several other organizations and kind of find out what they're doing. Take a look at maybe what the late fee structure is. Do you give a violator 7 to 10 days to pay and then maybe only charge a $5 late fee when the other organizations in your area may be charging a $15 late fee? Also, when we talk about late fees, do you have some type of structure put in place about waiving late fees? That's another way to bring in some additional funds. Make sure that your staff or your customer service agents aren't waiving late fees when it's not necessary. And And that goes into also the citations that are issued. Are they reduced to warnings? You know, you may have an enforcement officer that issues, I'm just going to say 100 citations a day, but 50% of those are reduced down to warnings. So that's a good item to look at when you're trying to pull in additional funds through collections. And then two, what percentage of those citations are appealed or contested? And do you offer payment plans? You know, you may have a registered owner that receives, let's just say 10 citations, and they are unable to pay all 10 at one time. Do you allow them to pay one citation at a time until the account is paid in full? And do you have the right payment options in place? I think that, you know, in the day and age that we are in now, a lot of people want to take care of things on the internet or online or over the phone very quickly. So you want to make sure that you have the right payment options and you give them the ability to be able to pay. The more options they have, the more likely they are to pay and the easier it's going to be for them. So as we get into step 4 on developing the next steps, I am actually going to turn this over to Sadie Jones. As it was mentioned in the beginning, Sadie is the call center manager. She's a senior manager here, and she has a wealth of knowledge and several years experience in the collection industry, and she handles the day-to-day activities for our clients as well as our call center here. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her talk a little bit about what are some next steps that your organization can take.
Hey everybody. So moving on to step 4, we're going to talk about developing the next steps. So really, it comes down to this. What tools are available to your organization? And are there tools that exist today that you could be utilizing? So as Christy was explaining earlier, for the universities, are you sending your unpaid parking tickets to the registrar's office? Class registration holds, parking permit purchase holds. And for the municipalities, you know, are you placing a DMV registration hold? For both entities, are you booting and towing? Third-party collections, are you partnered up with someone? And then lastly, the tax intercept program, if your state participates. Okay, next we're going to look at the outstanding unpaid citations and review that. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is, remember step 1, what Christy was talking about, obtaining registered owner information? So this is kind of a snapshot of a flex report from a university that uses their parking or student records to link customers to unpaid citations. So for the place that they are unable to link, it's creating quite a backlog. They have 1.4 million that's just sitting out there. Now, over to your right, if the university, or this university, were to add a tool like, say, DMV or, for example, Rover, they could potentially see a return rate of 50%. So when we're looking at that 50% and we break that down into, okay, what's collectible? The 2021 issued citations, they're going to carry a higher collection rate. Say like 57%. And then you move on to 2020, it goes down to 50. And then as the years back up there, the collectability percentage rate tends to drop. So with that being said, with that return, this university could possibly see $155,000. So that's really good. Okay. After we've identified the unpaid citations, now we kind of want to evaluate them. How much is outstanding? How old are the unpaid citations? What's the collectability percentage? As you saw earlier, the newer the citation, the higher the collectability. The older citations tend to carry a lower rate. So next we want to break down that debt by year. review what's outstanding. Do you have the appropriate registered owner tools in place? And then you want to develop a plan and set clear expectations. So as Christy was saying, this report that you noticed here, right? If your organization uses CCS collections, this report is available in Flex. For those of you who are not CS customers and you would like to add this report, please contact me or Christy. We'd be happy to set that up. We can also assist you in evaluating your current backlog and recommend some options. We can help. Let's really face it, 2020 was just a really tough year for everybody. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced a reduction in staff or you no longer have resources. We can help you develop an action plan for your organization, whether it's, finding the right registered owner information tool, letters and noticing, creating clear structure and consistent processes, and of course, developing the next steps. So as you're kind of getting the picture, CCS is not just a collection agency. We do know the ins and outs of parking, and it's what we specialize in. Okay, so we have Christy and I, our email and our contact information. If any of you would like to reach out to us, be happy to set up a call or answer any questions you may have, or again, review your data and recommend some things.
Excellent. Thank you, Sadie. So like we went over the steps to collections, it's really an easy process. And I know when, as an organization or the company, when you're looking at this large amount of debt that's sitting out there, and it's like, oh my goodness, what can we do to start collecting on some of these unpaid citations? If you stick with the 4-step process and make sure that you are implementing those processes, you will see an increase in your overall collections in your organization. Like we had stated, your first step is obtaining that registered owner information. You have to know who is responsible for that citation before it can escalate through any other process you may have within your department. And then also making sure that that debtor or that responsible party is fully aware of what the expectations are. Make sure that you are giving them some type of notice, even though we all know, that citation is supposed to be that first initial notice legally to them, right? But there is that sense of follow-up, and I'm sure you all have heard the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's the same thing with collections. You have to create those consistent processes, be consistent with your message, and use the tools that you have available for your organization or for your state to be able to push forward to collect on those citations. And then use your late fee structure to benefit you. A lot of times, individuals, they don't want it to escalate past that, right? So they're taking a $25 citation and possibly turning it into a $50 citation. And a lot of people would much rather go ahead and just take care of the $25. So make sure that you are letting those parkers and those violators know what your late fee structure looks like. And then if you have tools available to you, such as, like we had stated before, the DMV holds, the registration holds, the class schedule holds, the parking permit holds, any of those internal tools that you have, use them. It's only going to be to your benefit. And then obviously, if you can work with a third-party collection agency, I would highly recommend it. Not just because I work for Citation Services, but we have returned a lot of money to our clients and we're very good at what we do. We do understand the parking industry, we understand collections, and we understand how it's important to protect our customers' reputation, and we take an extreme amount of pride in the customer service that we give to our customers. So just a few tips on the parking citation cycle and collections. Like Sadie said, if you do have any additional questions or want the report to load into your Flex database, by all means, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. If there's something that we don't know, we can certainly ask any resource or our resources here to try to get the best answer for you to help you collect more money and bring back more money into your parking department.